The directors Allison Berg and François Keraudren. So I want to ask the first question, probably on a lot of people's mind. How did you get into John Wojtowicz's life in the first place?
It's basically bad math. We were watching Dog Day Afternoon. It was one of our favorite films, but we haven't seen it in a while. And at the end of the film, they say that the real-life bank robber was sentenced to 20 years. And for some reason, we added 10 years to that and thought he was getting out in a year. And being filmmakers, we're like, oh God, we have to find him, find out what he's really like, capture him as he gets out of prison, not knowing he'd been out since '78. But he still sounded really fascinating, and we found his mother in the phone book in Brooklyn. And once we found her, I guess 2 a.m. that same night, the dog called and asked us if we had the password, which we didn't, but I think he talked to us for like 4 hours that night, and he was pretty incredible, kind of what you get a taste of here, and we just knew we wanted to pursue it.
Frank, let me put this question to you. There's so much interesting archival footage in here from so many different sources. Can you share, one or two important discoveries?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the way this film came together, to put it in context, is originally we wanted to do a film that was much more a verite movie about his life, probably about 50% of what was going on now. But we got the story, I'd say about half the movie the first day, which was the main interview we did at the beginning. And that was like the blueprint or the roadmap. And then we started having to illustrate it, and we started looking for archival and photos. It took a couple of years, I think, before we started having enough to really make it work. From there on, I think it was probably much later, after John passed away, we did all the rest of the interviews. And George, Carmen, Randy Wicker, a lot of those people had kept hundreds of photographs, or they had tapes that were sitting in a crate somewhere that we had to try to transfer, which took another few years, And John himself had archived his entire life compulsively since he was a kid, as far as I can tell. But all that, we didn't have it in the beginning. We didn't start with a big pile of footage. And it wasn't like a feast of images. It was very much like finding a shot at a time, and it kept us going because we were on a hunt, basically. But, and some of it we found about 2 weeks ago. No, seriously, a couple of things.
Elaborate.
For example, we knew we had seen the footage of Terry, John's mother, at the bank during the robbery, speaking live to camera. We had seen that on some crazy, bizarre Japanese TV program from 10 years ago, which had Japanese narration and subtitles and things all over. We had a VHS somewhere. We could never find it. None of the archives said that they had it. We looked, we gave up.
But we thought we knew who had it the whole time.
Yeah, we thought we knew who had it, and they said they did. And in the end, I don't know, it was just a last minute thing. We found that DVD again. We're like, it would be so great to have John's mother at the scene of the crime. It was so important. Their relationship was so important. And we had somebody helping us at that time with the archival footage, and she knocked it out of the ballpark, and she found it.
Let's take some questions from the audience. Raise your hand, and I will call on you. Yeah, right in the middle.
Yeah, how many years of production should I?
So the question was, how many years of shooting versus doing other stuff?
I think we started 2002 or early 2003. I'm sorry, it's hard to remember the exact beginning. We have to look at the date on the tape. And well, John passed away at the beginning of 2006, but then all of the other interviews you see was 2007, 2008. So we kind of were filling in the rest of the story after we got the main story. So I guess production basically wrapped 2008.
It's also, just to understand, we did this, when we say 10 years, it's 10 years in our spare time, basically.
Yeah.
We're constantly working on other things. in film. But I don't know, like, in a way, there wasn't a whole lot of production as opposed to like a lot of other docs, I think, because it was just story-based, interview-based. The interviews were very hard to get. Like, I spoke to George about for 2 years before we filmed it. And there were some other people who didn't make the cut. It was a slow process.
Yeah, right here, ma'am.
How were you able to raise funds in order to get this started?
Question is, how do you raise funds to get the project started?
Don't, like, we've got $5,000 together to shoot for 2 days. Got that first interview, and most of the images of John giving us a tour of the West Village, just in 2 days. And then it took like 10 years to finish, because it was just one piece, but it was enough to keep us going. And we self-funded the film, which is why it took 10 years.
We've worked on social issue docs before, and you could get grant money, but you try and tell people that you worked on an unapologetic bank robber who's sex crazed, and not everyone's like throwing you cash. So, we've been working nonstop for the past few years, and every time we would earn enough money, we'd take a break, work on the film. There was one night, I think, Tom, I saw you, and you're like, maybe don't take a job again right now, finish the film, because we've been trying to finish it for years.
What's your background in terms of the other process again before you are now, in terms of schooling and work and so on?
Yeah. Well, I didn't study film. I kind of came at it from a social issue background. I was studying human rights, and then I ended up in documentary films, making social issue films, and well.
I went to film school a million years ago. A friend of mine was a Canadian director here, Patrick. But I don't know, after that, I worked in narrative, I worked in documentary, and I became an editor, which I still do. And with enough production and editing between the two of us, that was it,
He's a good combo, that's right.
Right in the middle there.
Frank, you mentioned his kids a couple times in the movie. What's the story? Did you ever have any contact with them, and where are they at now?
Okay, the question is where are his kids and whether we met them or not. We met his daughter a couple times. The main thing about it was John was, as a father, he was completely MIA. He never took care of his family. This is basically it. He talks about his first wife, like he was married to her forever, but we had a 2-year relationship. I think his daughter was interested in maybe knowing him, but she really wasn't around either. He didn't make much of an effort over the years. I think the son we never met. I think he didn't want to have anything to do with his father. Ultimately, it was just too much story. Like, we had many, many other stories that we could have put in there. But our first cut was an hour longer. It was the most epic movie ever. We just couldn't have everybody in there. There's many other subplots that we could have.
Right over here.
Did you consider contacting Al Pacino about his preparation for the film, or is he aware of this documentary?
Yeah, last week.
Really? Sure. The question was, Al Pacino, was he contacted about the film? There was another part, I think, but that's the basic gist. Well, Al Pacino, Frank Pearson, the screenwriter, Sidney Lumet, they were all on the list originally as people that we wanted to contact for the film. But as we started shooting and we got further and further into John's story, we realized it wasn't so much about the making of Dog Day Afternoon, and that sort of just organically fell away. However, we did just recently contact Al Pacino's people, and we don't know if he's seen it yet, but a DVD has been sent as of last week.
Just got a question. Yeah, right there in the group.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you talked about like self-funding it a little bit, and you kind of, I liked how when the credits ended, it was obviously a really small credit list, and you guys are the producers, you're the director, you guys, put everything into it, and I just wanted to say, like, you guys obviously downplayed a little bit before saying it was, 9 minutes for a year or anything, but I think it's like something incredible that kind of you guys live the same kind of shoot as a dog, where it's like you want to do something like fuck everyone else, and I'm going to do it how I want to do it. I think it comes through in the film where I think it's an incredible film, and no matter how long it took, it's still, it's something great. And I just wanted to kind of put that out there too.
Thank you, that means a lot.
I've known Frank and Allison for a while. Their lives are exactly like the dog. Got time for a couple more questions. In the middle there. Oh, sorry, Allison's mom. In the middle.
We're just wondering, it seems like this film almost lionizes this character to a certain extent and portrays him as a hero. Whereas, if you think about it and lay out the facts, he probably hurt a lot of people along the way. How did you reconcile that when it came to your decision on how to portray him?
Yeah, I mean, we thought a lot about that. You're totally right that basically, at the end of his life, I think he was completely alone except for his mother, who never ever gave up on him, and basically us, because we were just the people who showed up at that time in his life. He antagonized, and when I say antagonized, I mean he drove people away because he was the most uncompromising person in the world, and that's not, I'm not saying this as it was great quality. I think, we didn't try to make him look like a hero. I know that, we sort of gave him the mic. We were like, okay, here's this guy. You're never, ever going to get this guy to really tell you. I mean, he's a storyteller, That's his personality. That's the portrait of the character in a way. There's a lot of white lies in there for sure. We took out a million others. And I think, our hope is that the film shows him, won't be like, oh, look, he's crazy, but you kind of get the fact that, there's many layers. There's an uncompromising guy, there's a certain amount of mental illness, there's many things going on. There's probably some sort of trauma from the war, and he probably was predisposed to have this personality anyway. I don't really know. We definitely didn't set out to make him look like, a poster boy for anything, because I don't think he was, certainly not. I mean, if anything, I think he was so much more difficult than what you see in this film, that we were trying to find that balance. Maybe he comes across as less difficult because he's funny, He uses the humor a lot, but I don't know.
I think he said it all. We definitely wanted to make sure that we struck a balance. And I think it is because he is charismatic and he has these great one-liners that, you're laughing along with him. But, we're starting from the point that he did hold people hostage for 14 hours. And with a lot of his relationships, as Frank was saying, he threw them away. So that was our starting point.
So last question, can you elaborate on Terry, his mother, who's such an extraordinary character? Can you talk more about your connection to her?
Yeah, I'll say a few words on this. Terry, I would say, was not only honestly an incredible woman. We got really very close to her, and I know this happened to other people before us, that they would meet John. If you got close enough to John, you would meet his mother, because he basically lived there his entire life. And she's the one who took care of him. And she was so special, that you ended up, basically, you would stay because of her. I think the reason we stayed when John got sick, that was like a year with cancer without any treatment, which wasn't exactly pretty. And then another year with Terry before she died. And it was I think she kept us there. I think we probably would have given up with Terry. I don't want to say, she was really something else.
With Terry, you spend a lot of time with her and you realize, this is the person John comes from, because she had so much fire herself. And I think that our relationship with her, when she said in the film that she's never really talked about her personal life, that's something that just came with time. That didn't happen the first year we were filming. But I think that just out of a true friendship grew between us and Terry. And it did with the dog too. It's just that, the times he would drive other people away, sometimes he would just simply drive us crazy. But then Terry would need somebody to help her make a grilled cheese sandwich, and the next thing you know, you're watching a Lifetime movie, and You know, she's smoothing things over, and you know, you just, you know, Terry, I feel like she's sort of the heart of the film.
As I said before, you're the first audience to see this film. If you want to vote for it, take your ballot and put it in the box outside that says vote, or go online to tiff.net/vote. This film has a couple other screens at the festival, so please tell other people. Thank you very much for coming. I hope you see more great films. Thanks especially